In recent years, the question of whether the United States should leave NATO has sparked intense debate among policymakers, analysts, and the public alike. Founded in 1949, NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, has been a cornerstone of Western defense strategy, binding Europe and North America in a collective security pact. However, changing global dynamics and shifting priorities have led some to question the relevance of this alliance. Today, we explore the potential implications of a U.S. withdrawal from NATO. What might this decision mean for global security, economic stability, and international relations? And how could it impact Vietnam and the wider Southeast Asian region? Join us as we delve into these crucial questions, analyzing the historical significance and current debates surrounding America's role in NATO. This is not just a geopolitical issue. Its ramifications touch every corner of the globe, influencing markets, alliances, and the balance of power in an increasingly multipolar world. NATO was established in the aftermath of World War II, aiming to deter Soviet expansion and foster political solidarity among Western nations. The treaty's key principle, enshrined in Article 5, promises collective defense. An attack on one member is considered an attack on all. With 30 member countries today, NATO's scope has expanded beyond its original mandate, tackling issues ranging from cyber threats to terrorism. The United States, as NATO's largest financial contributor, plays a pivotal role in the alliance's operations. However, recent discussions have highlighted concerns over burden sharing, military spending, and strategic priorities. Proponents of U.S. withdrawal argue it could lead to reduced military expenditures and greater autonomy in foreign policy. Critics caution that leaving NATO might destabilize global security architecture and weaken U.S. influence. This dynamic debate underscores the complexity of maintaining a 21st-century alliance that addresses both traditional and emerging security challenges. The debate over the U.S.'s continued participation in NATO has gained urgency amid a rapidly evolving global landscape. As geopolitical tensions rise, particularly with Russia and China, NATO's role in maintaining Western security and political cohesion is increasingly scrutinized. The potential U.S. withdrawal could embolden adversarial nations, alter security dynamics in Europe, and shift the balance of power. For Vietnam and Southeast Asia more broadly, changes in U.S. commitments to global alliances could impact regional stability and economic partnerships. The South China Sea, a strategic and contested region, might see shifts in naval power and diplomatic relations if the U.S. recalibrates its foreign policy. With the Indo-Pacific becoming a focal point for global powers, any adjustment in U.S. alliances can reverberate widely, affecting trade routes, security arrangements, and diplomatic ties. Understanding these implications is crucial for anticipating future geopolitical shifts that could reshape the global order. NATO's creation was a direct response to the geopolitical climate of the late 1940s. In the wake of World War II, Europe was left in ruins, facing the threat of Soviet expansion. Western nations, led by the United States, sought to create a unified front against potential aggression, resulting in the signing of the North Atlantic Treaty in Washington, D.C. on April 4, 1949. Initially comprising 12 countries, NATO's mission was clear: deter Soviet aggression and promote peace and stability in Europe. Over the decades, NATO has adapted to changing threats, from the Cold War's ideological battles to contemporary challenges like cyber warfare and terrorism. The alliance's expansion, including former Warsaw Pact countries, highlights its evolving nature and enduring relevance. As we consider America's role in NATO today, it's essential to understand this historical backdrop, which underscores the alliance's significance in shaping the modern world order and fostering transatlantic ties. The origins of NATO are rooted in the turbulent geopolitics following World War II. As Europe lay in ruins, the Soviet Union emerged as a formidable power, expanding its influence across Eastern Europe. This expansion alarmed Western nations, leading to a search for a collective security arrangement to prevent further Soviet encroachment. The Marshall Plan, aimed at economic recovery, complemented these efforts by stabilizing Western European economies. NATO's formation in 1949 was a strategic response to these threats, signaling a commitment to mutual defense and deterring Soviet aggression. The alliance's success in preventing major conflicts in Europe during the Cold War underscored its importance. However, NATO's relevance faced scrutiny post-Cold War. As the Soviet threat diminished, The alliance adapted by addressing new challenges, such as regional conflicts, terrorism, and cyber threats, while expanding its membership to include former adversaries, reflecting its enduring role in global security. NATO's framework is built on the collaboration of its member countries, each playing a vital role in the alliance's operations and strategy. The United States, as the largest military power and financial contributor, holds significant sway over NATO's strategic direction. European powers like Germany, the United Kingdom, and France are key contributors, providing military capabilities and political leadership. Eastern European countries, many of which joined after the Cold War, view NATO as essential for their security against potential Russian aggression. Turkey, straddling Europe and Asia, occupies a strategic position and acts as a crucial NATO ally in the Middle East. The varying priorities and capabilities of these members sometimes lead to tensions, particularly concerning burden sharing and military spending. As the alliance evolves, understanding the roles and perspectives of these key players is essential for navigating the complex dynamics of contemporary global security. The timeline of NATO's evolution is marked by significant milestones that reflect its adaptability and resilience. After its founding in 1949, NATO's first major test came with the Korean War, where member states coordinated efforts to support South Korea against communist forces. The alliance's role expanded in the 1950s and 60s, with the inclusion of Greece and Turkey, and later West Germany, bolstering its strategic depth. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the subsequent dissolution of the Soviet Union marked a new era for NATO, prompting a shift from collective defense to cooperative security. The 1990s saw NATO's involvement in the Balkans, enforcing peace in Bosnia and Kosovo. Post 9/11, the alliance invoked Article 5 for the first time, leading operations in Afghanistan. Recent years have seen deployments in Eastern Europe to deter Russian aggression and initiatives to combat cyber threats. This timeline illustrates NATO's enduring role in addressing evolving global security challenges. The United States' position within NATO has been a subject of considerable debate, particularly in recent years. As the largest financial and military contributor, the U.S. has historically been seen as the backbone of the alliance. However, discussions around burden sharing have intensified, with some U.S. administrations pushing for European allies to increase their defense spending. This shift reflects broader strategic considerations, including the U.S.'s focus on the Indo-Pacific region and competition with China. Proponents of maintaining strong NATO ties argue that the alliance is vital for deterring Russian aggression and fostering transatlantic cooperation. Conversely, critics suggest that the U.S. should prioritize its resources toward emerging challenges elsewhere. The debate encapsulates a broader question of America's global role and commitments in an increasingly multipolar world. Understanding the U.S. position on NATO is crucial for assessing potential shifts in global security dynamics and international alliances. Official statements from the U.S. government often highlight the importance of NATO as a pillar of international security and a symbol of transatlantic unity. Recent administrations have reiterated commitments to the alliance, emphasizing the need for collective defense against emerging threats. However, they have also stressed the importance of equitable burden sharing among member states. Statements from the Department of Defense and the State Department frequently underscore the strategic benefits of NATO, including its role in countering Russian aggression and global terrorism. Yet, political discourse within the U.S. reflects a spectrum of opinions, from staunch support for NATO to calls for re-evaluation of America's commitments. These official positions are critical for understanding U.S. foreign policy priorities and potential shifts in international alliances. They also signal to the world the level of U.S. engagement in maintaining global stability through multilateral cooperation. The political context surrounding the U.S.'s involvement in NATO is shaped by both domestic and international factors. Domestically, debates over defense spending, military engagement, and foreign policy priorities influence perceptions of NATO's value. Political polarization within the U.S. also affects consensus on international commitments. Internationally, rising geopolitical tensions, particularly with Russia and China, reinforce NATO's strategic importance. However, shifting alliances and emerging global powers challenge traditional security paradigms. The rise of non-state actors and cyber threats further complicate the security landscape. Within this context, the U.S. faces the challenge of balancing its historical commitments with the need to address contemporary threats. This political environment requires careful navigation to ensure that NATO remains effective and relevant in a rapidly changing world. Understanding the political dynamics at play is essential for grasping the complexities of the U.S.-NATO relationship and its implications for global security. In recent months, the debate surrounding the United States' potential withdrawal from NATO has intensified. This discourse has been fueled by a series of statements from key political figures, alongside a global shift towards more isolationist policies in multiple nations. This increasing nationalism is causing ripples in international relations, with some American policymakers arguing that NATO no longer serves the U.S. interests as it once did. Meanwhile, European allies have expressed concerns over the reliability of U.S. commitment to collective defense, as outlined in Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. These developments come at a critical time when global security threats, such as cyber warfare and terrorism, are on the rise. The recent NATO summit highlighted these tensions, with member states calling for increased defense spending and enhanced cooperation. The question remains whether the alliance can adapt to these new challenges without the United States playing its traditional leadership role. Leaving NATO could have significant economic repercussions for the United States and its allies. The alliance not only provides military security, but also fosters economic stability through shared intelligence and market confidence. A U.S. exit might lead to destabilized markets as investors react to increased geopolitical uncertainty. The potential for trade disruptions is also high, as defense contracts and joint military projects are integral to transatlantic economic ties. European nations might face increased defense spending, diverting funds from other critical areas like infrastructure and social programs. In the U.S., defense industries could suffer from decreased orders and lost partnerships, impacting jobs and economic growth. The departure could also strain the U.S. dollar's status as the world's reserve currency if global confidence in American leadership diminishes. The financial markets have shown sensitivity to the ongoing discussions about the U.S. potentially leaving NATO. Stock indices in both the U.S. and Europe have experienced fluctuations, reflecting investor concerns about geopolitical stability. Defense stocks, in particular, have seen mixed performances as uncertainty looms over future contracts and partnerships. Additionally, sectors heavily reliant on transatlantic cooperation, such as aerospace and technology, are monitoring developments closely. Analysts warn that prolonged uncertainty could lead to more significant market corrections. The bond markets, often seen as a safe haven during times of turmoil, have seen increased activity as investors seek refuge from potential instability. These market reactions underscore the interconnected nature of global economies and the far-reaching impacts of geopolitical decisions. The potential U.S. withdrawal from NATO could have significant implications for currency markets. The U.S. dollar, traditionally viewed as a safe haven currency, might face volatility as investor confidence wavers. In contrast, the euro could experience increased pressure as European nations grapple with heightened defense spending and economic uncertainty. Currency fluctuations are likely as markets adjust to new geopolitical realities. Meanwhile, smaller currencies in NATO member countries may also experience volatility, affecting trade balances and economic stability. Central banks are expected to monitor these developments closely, ready to intervene if necessary to stabilize their respective currencies. These shifts underscore the interconnectedness of global financial systems and the ripple effects that can arise from major geopolitical changes. Strategically, the potential exit of the U.S. from NATO raises several critical military considerations. The alliance has been the cornerstone of Western military cooperation since World War II, providing a unified defense front against common threats. Without U.S. leadership, NATO's strategic coherence could be challenged, potentially leading to a fragmented response to security threats. European nations might need to enhance their military capabilities independently, which could lead to a regional arms race. Furthermore, the absence of U.S. military support might embolden adversarial nations, altering the balance of power. It also raises questions about the future of joint military exercises and defense strategies, as well as the management of NATO's nuclear assets. These strategic shifts necessitate careful analysis to ensure continued security in a rapidly changing geopolitical environment. The implications for defense are profound if the U.S. leaves NATO. This move could compel European nations to accelerate the formation of a more integrated EU defense force, potentially altering the military landscape of the continent. The absence of U.S. military power could lead to gaps in collective defense capabilities, particularly in areas like air and missile defense, where the U.S. plays a pivotal role. Additionally, The logistics and coordination of defense resources across Europe could become more complex without U.S. leadership. This situation may also incentivize European countries to boost their defense budgets, leading to increased military spending across the region. However, this transition could take time, leaving a temporary vulnerability in Europe's defense posture. The potential withdrawal of the United States from NATO could catalyze significant strategic shifts within global military alliances. Without U.S. involvement, European countries may pursue closer defense ties with other global powers, such as China or Russia, to fill the strategic vacuum. This realignment could redefine global security dynamics, creating new alliances and rivalries. Additionally, countries in Asia, particularly those relying on U.S. support through NATO connections, may seek new security arrangements. This scenario could lead to a multipolar world where military power is more evenly distributed, but potentially less stable. These shifts highlight the importance of flexible and adaptive military strategies to navigate the evolving landscape. In analyzing the potential U.S. withdrawal from NATO, expert opinions vary widely. Some analysts argue that NATO has outlived its original purpose and that the U.S. should focus on emerging threats, such as cybersecurity and economic warfare. They suggest that resources could be better allocated to addressing these modern challenges rather than maintaining traditional military alliances. Conversely, other experts warn that leaving NATO could undermine decades of strategic partnerships and weaken collective security efforts. They emphasize the importance of multilateralism in addressing global threats, arguing that NATO remains a vital platform for international cooperation. These divergent views highlight the complexity of the decision and the need for a nuanced approach when considering such a significant geopolitical shift. The possible U.S. departure from NATO has elicited a range of reactions from around the world. In Europe, there is a palpable sense of anxiety about the potential gaps in security and defense. Many European leaders have called for greater unity and self-reliance in defense matters. In contrast, some Asian countries, particularly those in Southeast Asia, view this potential shift as an opportunity to strengthen regional alliances and reduce dependency on Western military support. In Russia and China, the news is perceived as a strategic advantage, potentially allowing them to expand their influence without direct U.S. counterbalance. These diverse perspectives underscore the global implications of the U.S. decision and highlight the importance of understanding regional dynamics in the context of international security. The ramifications of a U.S. exit from NATO would be particularly profound for Europe. European nations would face the daunting task of enhancing their defense capabilities independently, which could lead to increased military spending at the expense of other critical sectors. The shift could spur greater collaboration within the EU to develop a cohesive defense strategy, potentially boosting political and military integration. However, the transition might also expose divisions within Europe regarding defense priorities and spending. Additionally, Eastern European countries which rely heavily on U.S. military support might feel particularly vulnerable to Russian aggression. This situation underscores the need for a comprehensive and unified European defense policy to ensure regional stability and security. As discussions about America's potential departure from NATO intensify, global diplomatic dynamics are witnessing significant shifts. The United States, historically a pivotal NATO member, has been a cornerstone in maintaining Western unity against perceived global threats. However, recent U.S. administration rhetoric and actions suggest a re-evaluation of its NATO commitments. This has prompted European allies to reassess their own defense strategies, potentially increasing defense budgets and forging new military alliances within the EU. The diplomatic landscape is further complicated by Russia's strategic maneuvers, aiming to exploit any perceived fractures within NATO. Meanwhile, China observes these developments closely, potentially recalibrating its diplomatic stance towards a less unified Western bloc. In Vietnam, these changes are monitored with keen interest, given its strategic position in Southeast Asia and its own historical experiences with international alliances. The potential reconfiguration of Western alliances could alter Vietnam's diplomatic and economic engagements, influencing both regional security dynamics and bilateral relations with major powers. Vietnam's approach to the potential strategic realignment of Western alliances involves a careful balancing act. The country has historically maintained a non-aligned stance, focusing on multilateral diplomacy and regional cooperation through ASEAN. Vietnam's priority is to ensure regional stability and peace, crucial for its economic growth and development. The potential weakening of NATO could lead Vietnam to bolster its own defense capabilities and strengthen ties with key partners like Japan, India, and Australia. Additionally, Vietnam may seek to deepen its economic and security engagements with the U.S. as a counterbalance to China's growing influence in the South China Sea. Hanoi's diplomatic efforts are likely to focus on fostering a stable environment that allows for continued economic integration and growth. This strategic positioning will demand astute diplomacy to navigate the shifting geopolitical landscape while safeguarding national interests. The potential departure of the United States from NATO could have significant implications for Asia. The region, already a focal point of major power competition, may see an increase in military posturing and redefined alliances. Countries like Japan and South Korea, long reliant on U.S. security guarantees, might accelerate their own defense initiatives or seek new security partnerships. ASEAN nations could face increased pressure to choose sides amid the shifting balance of power, impacting regional unity and cooperation. Meanwhile, China may view a fractured NATO as an opportunity to expand its influence, both economically and militarily, across Asia-Pacific. This could lead to heightened tensions in the South China Sea, affecting trade routes and regional stability. Vietnam, with its strategic location, might find itself at the center of these dynamics, balancing relations with both Western and regional powers. The situation demands careful navigation to maintain peace and foster economic prosperity. Looking to the future, several potential scenarios could unfold depending on whether the U.S. decides to remain in or exit NATO. If the U.S. stays, NATO could see a revitalization, with renewed commitments from member states to share the defense burden more equitably. This could strengthen the alliance and deter adversarial actions from other global powers. Alternatively, if the U.S. exits, NATO might face fragmentation, with Europe possibly developing its own defense mechanisms independent of U.S. influence. This could lead to a more multipolar world where regional blocs gain prominence. For Vietnam, these outcomes would necessitate strategic adjustments in its foreign policy and defense planning. The country might need to consider deeper security engagements with regional powers and explore new economic partnerships. Additionally, Vietnam's role in ASEAN could become more pivotal as the region seeks to navigate these complex geopolitical shifts. The future remains uncertain, but strategic foresight will be key. There are several warning signs to monitor as the debate over America's NATO membership progresses. First, observe shifts in U.S. foreign policy statements and defense spending priorities, as these could indicate a change in commitment. Second, watch for reactions from key NATO allies, particularly those in Europe, regarding their own defense strategies and any moves towards increased military cooperation within the EU. Third, pay attention to Russia's military activities and diplomatic engagements, which may seek to exploit any perceived weakness in NATO's cohesion. Lastly, China's diplomatic and economic maneuvers in the Asia-Pacific region could signal its strategic intent amidst these shifts. For Vietnam, monitoring these developments is crucial to adapting its foreign policy and ensuring national security. Staying alert to these indicators will provide valuable insights into the evolving geopolitical landscape and help anticipate potential impacts on regional stability. As global dynamics shift, it's crucial for viewers to stay informed and critically engaged with international news. Understanding the potential implications of a changing NATO landscape requires following credible news sources and expert analyses. Viewers should consider the broader context of these developments, including historical relations, economic ties, and security alliances. For those in business or investments, tracking geopolitical risk assessments and their impact on markets can be beneficial. It's also important to understand how these changes might affect local economies, particularly in countries like Vietnam, where regional stability is linked to economic prosperity. Engaging in discussions and seeking diverse perspectives will help build a comprehensive understanding of the evolving geopolitical environment. By staying informed, viewers can better anticipate how global events might influence their personal and professional lives. In summary, the debate over America's role in NATO is more than just a question of military alliances. It's a pivotal moment that could reshape global geopolitics. Key points include the potential diplomatic shifts in Europe and Asia, Vietnam's strategic positioning amidst these changes, and the broader implications for regional and global stability. The discussion highlights the importance of understanding the interconnectedness of global events and their local impacts. For Vietnam, and indeed the world, Staying informed and adaptable will be crucial in navigating this complex landscape. As we move forward, monitoring developments and engaging with diverse perspectives will provide the clarity needed to anticipate and respond to future challenges. In this interconnected world, every decision and alliance has far-reaching consequences, and understanding these dynamics is essential for both policymakers and the public. If you found this perspective valuable, consider subscribing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them. Thank you for watching.